Hello and welcome to the 21st episode of my podcast, Historians in Conversation, which is hosted by the University of Lodz in Poland. My name is Michaël Green, and I am going to talk today to Dr. Tsila Rädecker, who is an independent scholar and has background in Jewish history. And our conversation today will be focusing on her career beyond the academia, but also on her academic aspirations and academic publications. Welcome, Tsila, to my podcast. Hello, Tsila, and welcome to my podcast. I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm certain that we are going to have a very interesting conversation because your academic path is not a very standard one, and I think that it is pretty inspiring for all those who might not be willing to continue their path in academia as such, but do or have an alternative career, but still continue doing the research. So, Tsila, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I'm really glad you invited me to come here and to speak about my alternative career path.
Well, traditionally, I start my podcast by asking questions about the childhood because I believe that childhood makes the person and also the family. So, could you tell a little bit about your own family? Where do you come from? Can you tell a little bit about your parents and the place where you
Yeah,
were born, the environment?
okay. Well, I grew up in a little town in the middle of Holland. Sister, my parents are still together. I grew up in a Jewish household. We were very traditional and religious. My father was always on the path of becoming a Jew. He's still on that path. He's now, I think, 82. So I remember him like that, and he's still like that. So that makes him like 40 years already. No, 60 years maybe on this path. I came from my mom is actually born in the Second World War, so this has always been a very dark side actually of the family. I think we were the only Jewish family in town. I went to a normal school. I think it's Montessori elementary school, and afterwards I visited two schools. One was a Christian school, and the other one was more open. Was had not a religious denomination. I think it was a very shy child. I didn't like to play outside. I only liked to read books.
So, it sounds very interesting, and I think I can relate to being a shy child. I also was one. What did your parents do? What kind of work? And if both of them worked or one of them stayed home?
Mhm. In the beginning, my mom was more at home. She's a nurse. And afterwards, when we got older, she did a night shift. So I can always remember going to bed and leaving in the evening to do her night shift as a nurse. And my father is an accountant.
So they were educated people, you could say.
No, not really. My father didn't graduate his high school. So they uh, they moved on. My mother is just normal lower level of education, but she also continued studying. So
And
so they ended up well enough.
do you remember as a child, what were your interests? Did you have any interest besides reading in other things, traveling or
Drawing. Before I went to the university, I went to art school. So that drawing and fashion. So first, before I went to university, I went to fashion school, and then I also did a couple of years at art school. So that's also one side of me. And
and
I
what
did play the piano also.
like a good Jewish child, you could say.
Yeah, I played the piano, went to dance classes. Yeah.
I would like to ask you about the books that you read because you mentioned that you read a lot of books. Do you remember what kind of books were those?
Usually, you have a very well-known very well-known writer in Holland. And she writes books for children, but they're set in a kind of historical setting.
And who was that?
And I was Thea Beckman. I was particularly fond of her. I think I read the whole library there, and when I finished all the books in the library for the children, I went downstairs. So I was allowed at a very young age to continue reading the adult books because there was none for me left except then for really boy books, but that didn't appeal to me. So I'm really fond of reading. I went 3 times a week to the library. So, and at the height of my reading spree, I read about 9 books each week. So
I
I really
remember
didn't like playing outside.
I remember those times too, although I don't remember how many books I read, but I remember at certain age that I was really devouring
Mm,
those books from our library or my grandparents' library.
yeah,
A little bit less from public library, but yeah, I can relate.
yeah, yeah. I had to have some really nice memories. Hector Malot, Alone in the World. Oh, I love that book. Really nice. Yeah.
And when you went to school,
Mm.
well, in the Dutch system, which is quite different than the system in other countries, you have several types of schools at
Mm.
later age, but I think everyone starts more or less in one kind of
No, well,
basic
we have
school.
3 levels or even more. I was allowed in the highest level to do Latin and Greek. My
That was in
mama,
the high school, but I mean in the
my
elementary school.
elementary, everything is together, and then in the high school, I was allowed to go to the highest level, but my mother really objected to it. So I did the highest level except for the Latin and Greek. I did Latin for a couple of years. My mama really thought it was just ridiculous that I went to such a school. So I was actually the first person in the whole of the family to reach that level.
And your sister, what did she
Also, we
like?
were the first persons to go to university in the whole of
We
the
were the
family.
first generation of university
Yeah,
graduates. We will get there in a second, but before that, I
mm,
wanted to ask you about your likings while being in high school. So you mentioned drawing, and I wonder, did you have any interest in history already at that age,
yeah,
or
I
it
did.
was something that developed later?
I read a lot of history books, especially when they were set in a kind of a story. I really love those books, and I can remember that was actually the only course that I really liked.
Do you remember any
Yeah,
particular books?
not really. I have no idea. I read everything, but I don't think real history books, more like in a history setting.
Oh, I
Potok.
remember, for example,
Okay.
I was a big fan of Dumas, but not of the Musketeer series. I really liked the stories
Mm.
about Henry III and Queen Margot and all of those.
Actually, I have no recollection of that, only of Thea Beckman and her historical books. But especially in high school, also read a lot of philosophy. Read Greek plays. I have really an active memory of reading or me struggling through the Etica of Spinoza. I really tried to pick out books that were actually not really fit for my age, but I really love those books. So.
Well, I have to ask you, being obviously a smart kid and a kid who spent probably a lot of time at home, how did your social life develop at that age?
It really depends. I'm not a person with many friends, but the friends that I have, I still have nowadays. So in the beginning, I was a bit of a troubled child, and it's still my best friend is still from that period. So I think we're friends for now 35 years, something like that. Yeah.
That's quite impressive.
Yeah.
You advanced through Athenaeum, I suppose that's the name
Yeah.
of this type of school that you went to. And
Mm-hmm.
when you approached the final exams and you had to decide what to do next, can you tell me what were the options that you had and how did you decide to do what you eventually did?
I was really fed up with school. I really didn't like it. I actually never went that much. I skipped school so many times. Usually I skipped school and then I sat in a park outside on a bench with other books. So I was really happy when I finally graduated. And I didn't want to continue. I wanted to have a break. So, and I wanted to learn languages. So first I went half a year to Israel. I went to kibbutz, Magan Michael. And afterwards well, the plan was to go for half a year to Paris, to be an au pair there. But it turned out to be, I got homesick. I got really, really homesick in Paris. I really couldn't relate to the culture. So I had no problems with being in Israel far away, but I, I couldn't, I don't know, I couldn't fit in. So after 6 weeks, I left.
Do you
And it
speak
was not.
French?
No, I didn't. I do not speak French. That was the reason why I wanted to learn the language, but I really felt homesick. I really felt alone, and I really didn't fit into the family. And there was this baby, and I was very young, 19 years old, and was this baby continually crying, and I was really, yeah, I really wasn't not really feeling well. So I just decided to let my mom and dad pick me up. So they drove with a car to Paris and they picked me up.
That's the advantage of living in the small Europe,
Yeah,
where you can
that's
drive
Europe.
everywhere by car.
It's a 5 hour drive.
So you came back to the Netherlands, and then
Mhm.
what? What
I
happened next?
worked and then I went to a fashion school. I did an audition for that. Uh, I got in. Uh, and then I did 2 years and then I decided it was too commercial. I needed to be more free. So, and then I applied for two other art schools. I also got in The Hague, and I got also in the art school of Utrecht. And then I decided to go to The Hague. And after 2 years, I really felt intellectually drained. I really needed to do something with my brains. So I quit. I didn't like it there. So I had 4 years of art education.
So actually, you could have already had a degree in art if you pursued in one place.
Yeah. So and then I thought of could maybe do maybe choose to do art history, but then I thought there was too many women, and I already worked for 4 years with only women. I wanted to have a bit of more also males. I wanted to see more of the world than only women's studies, so I decided to change to history. Actually that's the reason, and I chose history because this was the uh you should it was I chose this study because everybody told me that you had to read a lot of a lot you had to read a lot. So actually that was the only reason, and I loved reading, so I thought, well, maybe that's a study for me.
And
Yeah,
where did you go?
in Amsterdam, of course. UvA,
University of Amsterdam.
University of Amsterdam, absolutely.
Was it difficult to get in after so
No,
many years of actually being outside of
no, no,
school and
really easy. Not really easy. I have my degree, so no problem.
when you started studying, how did it go?
Uh,
Was it something that
well, in the
you
beginning, I worked
enjoyed?
a lot. In the beginning, I worked a lot because I didn't have any scholarship anymore because I already spent it on the art schools. So I worked a lot. So my grades weren't that well. And afterwards, I decided to work a little bit less. And then in the second year, I met my husband during philosophy of science. So,
And from that point on, you continued to study history while
yeah,
having your future husband on the side
Yeah.
of the story. And was it something that you actually enjoyed, history? At that
Yeah,
point, was
still.
it something that you thought, okay, I'm
I
gonna
really,
make a career out of it, or it was just for fun
well, in the
because you
beginning,
wanted
yeah,
the challenge?
maybe I hope I didn't know what to do actually. And then all of a sudden I decided, I think it was in my third year, that maybe academia could be an option. So, because the teachers really looked happy at the university, and I thought, well, they look so happy, maybe I should become that too. So actually, it was the reason because they looked so happy.
In the
Must be,
Dutch, yeah,
that must be a good profession.
in the Dutch system back in the day, as far as I know, there was no real master's degree, but a combined study of 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, after which you could continue for PhD. So if you fast forward your study to the moment that you finished, what you would say, what you would call nowadays the master's degree.
Yeah, well, I did the masters. I was the
You did the
first.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I was the first year that I started with that. Actually, I borrowed a bit of money to do an extra year in order to learn Hebrew and Yiddish, because I needed those languages to study the sources for my thesis.
And what your thesis was about.
My thesis was about religious social control in Amsterdam in the 18th century.
But it
So
was
I needed
focused
to
on
I
the
needed to
Jews.
work, yeah, I needed to go to the municipal minutes, and that was written in Hebrew. And I later found out it was written in a mixture of Hebrew and Yiddish. So I also took some courses Yiddish.
So once you were done with your master's studies, it was
Hmm.
already a clear decision in your mind that you have to look for a PhD position.
Yeah, and that was difficult because they closed the PhD positions for 2 years because of the I don't know, was the money. Actually, I have no idea why. There was a shortage of money. This was during the crisis. So also the universities were affected by the crisis of 2008. So they stopped handing out scholarships to PhDs for 2 years. So what I did then, I found a job in municipal housing, and I continued working on my proposal. And then I decided to go without funding, to find my own funding. And then I started, I think in 2009, I started as an external PhD student with a professor. He's now passed away, Berger, at
In what university?
University of Amsterdam. And I found some funding for my PhD, not a lot, but some. And then all of a sudden, I saw an opening in Groningen with actually almost a similar subject that I was working on, because I was working on rabbinical authority in the 18th century. And the opening position was about modernity after 1800. So I rewrote my proposal to fit in with the program at Groningen.
And then you
Uh,
started again, in fact.
yeah, but I already read a lot of sources, so I had a what do you kind of say? I had a
Good background in
good background. I already knew secondary literature, so it wasn't that difficult for me to start.
I think
Actually, I
that
was invited by I three positions at
oh,
the faculty, so it was a bit of an awkward conversation sitting at a table with 7 professors. Oh, sorry.
and well, I think that this PhD period is very interesting on the one hand and developing, but on the other hand is extremely stressful because you're in fact dependent on one person or two people who are supervising
Hmm.
you. And this relationship with your supervisor can be either supportive or at times very damaging. First of all, if you could say who was your supervisor, if you don't want to mention, it's
Coco
okay.
van Stoekraat and Karin Hofmeester. Karin Hofmeester, I actually asked her to join the project because I really wanted to have a person with some expertise, historical expertise on on my project. So, and she was willing to supervise me.
And how did it go?
Uh,
How was their PhD time?
Really nice. But I did everything on my own. I hardly met with my supervisors, so
There were
I
no
think I met.
structured regular meetings.
I think I met with my. I met with Karin more often, especially at the end of the project. I think I met with her maybe 5 or 6 times, but she also invited me to some conferences. So so we had more of a more contact, more of a relationship. With Coco van Stoekraat, I think I met with him maybe 5 times. Maybe. I have no idea.
But it's not
Not that
much.
often. No, not that often, no.
And while studying, well, because in the Netherlands it's a PhD student most of the times, but of course there are other options. But as a PhD student, did you already have some sort of a plan in your mind for the future? You
I wanted to
mentioned conferences, and conferences are, well, can be a very great tool for networking, but you also need to be told so, advised so by your supervisor or by your peers that you should not only go to participate there for scientific reasons, but you should go there to participate for networking reasons in order to make contacts that in the future could help you in getting a job. So I
Hmm.
wonder, what did you think about this
I,
potential
wa-
job, and if you wanted to stay in academia or not?
I wanted to pursue an academic career. Let me be very clear on that. But on the other hand, I also have small children, 2 small children, and therefore, I didn't want to leave them behind. So my options were very shrinked, very limited. I had limited options. Then I decided to pursue as a individual, or how do you mean, independent researcher. And then I did succeed in that. I got my book contract. I got 7 scholarships for a new book. But to be honest, it was not enough to provide for my family. So I needed to think of something else, something that suited me and something that matched my abilities and my knowledge.
And you were looking for
So
something outside the academia.
something outside academia, maybe a bit related. And then I thought of becoming a teacher, a high school teacher.
But before we reach the teacher part, I wonder if you tried to apply for any academic jobs. I know that the choice was limited.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did. I did. Applied for a very famous scholarship. I ended up high, but just not high enough.
Unfortunately, it's often the case that you're high, but not high enough.
So I was out. I was outstanding, but not outstanding enough. So yeah, it takes a lot of time to prepare a proposal. It takes up ages, couple of months, and then you have only one shot, a 10% shot, and well, you have 90% chance of not making it.
And then you unfortunately did not make it to the scholarship. And I
Yeah,
suppose that was probably part of the decision to abandon attempts to find those
yeah,
temporary contracts and to move into something else. And you mentioned that
yeah.
you became a teacher. Was that
Yeah.
a difficult decision to make?
Well, I have to wait because my youngest daughter didn't sleep through the night, so I woke up 6 times a night. So I really needed to uh I needed to I needed to get more sleep in order to make another life-changing decision in order go uh, uh, to go to have another education or a separate education or a separate or second career path. So when she slept through the night after 2 years, I decided to go back to school and to get my teaching permit. And actually, within a year, I already got a job. So I was still studying and
And
yeah,
already working.
and already working. Yeah. And now I work already 5 years in high schools.
And in high school, I assume you teach history, but also some other subjects. So it
Mm-hmm.
gives you some connection to the history matter, and
Yeah.
perhaps not the university level of teaching, but still you teach high school, so it
I
allows
teach
you
high
to.
school, so it's preliminary, so it's basic. What I do is also translate my research skills into simple. I got a message. Okay.
Yeah, that's just our message. I'll cut it out. That's where we're gonna move in 5 minutes or so.
I try to translate the way I do research, the way historians do research. I try to translate that for high school students into easy steps to follow up. So that's what I do. I do use some of my research subjects in my classes. Yeah, it does come back, but then at a very simple, easy level. Yeah.
I wonder how did you deal with this break from academia? Because it sounded like you're very passionate about doing an academic career and doing research, and then you
Mhm.
quit, or actually, did you quit completely?
No, I did not completely quit because I started a biography on the first policewoman in the Netherlands. I'm now finally, or I'm hoping to finally finish this project. So I did not completely stop, and sometimes I do present at conferences some research, but it's very limited because I don't have a lot of time to do it. But it's just more for fun.
And about proper academic research or proper academic writing, did you do anything during all those years since you finished your
Yes,
PhD?
I think I still have one article each year. So
In
for
fact, you
one
publish
article
as a
in
regular.
1.5 years. So a bit, not that much sometimes.
So I
When
think
I
that's
present somewhere, they ask me to contribute to a book, to conference book. So and then I write an article.
so. This is the place to give a little disclaimer that I know you from our PhD studies together. You started, I think, a year or 2 years after me.
Mhm.
And I know that you have been quite active in the academia despite not actually being employed anywhere. But in the past years, I think that I've seen you on many conferences that had to do with different topics, with Jewish studies, with privacy, with women's studies, and things like that. And you also mentioned that you still publish regularly every year. And I think this is a number of articles that some active academics publish once a year. So, in fact, you are an active academic. And this is next to your full-time job as a mother and, well, a job as a teacher at school and as a wife. And you keep, of course, you need to take care also of the family. And I wonder, how do you combine those things together? Where do you have the energy and the will to do it?
No idea, actually. I do have a lot of energy. I know I'm very disciplined. I'm really, really, really disciplined. I can remember when I was finishing my PhD and I just got my first daughter, Tsila. I think she was 1 month. And then I would set the alarm clock at 6 o'clock in the morning after a hellish night. I set it at 6, and then I went to university to be there at 7 to finish my PhD, my dissertation. I was writing the last chapters, and I would write from 7 until 1, and then I return home, and then my husband could go work. And I did that 5, 6 days a week. This is, yeah. For me, that's normal. For me, that's normal just to if you want to finish something, then you have to do it. Do not complain, just do it. And that's how I can remember me writing my introduction. And it was very difficult for me to write my introduction from a dissertation because I had to combine a couple of theoretical perspectives. I had to match them. I had to match the postmodern perspective to the phenomenological perspective. And it was very difficult for me to do. And I can remember me sitting on the bed because we lived in a very small apartment, and my father was, I think, 2 months, 3 months, sitting there trying to get through a background. And then every time my mother-in-law would knock on the door when it was feeding time, because I breastfed my children, and then I breastfed my daughter, and then she would leave the room with my daughter afterwards, and I would continue writing my introduction. So for me, I don't know why. I think everybody in the family works like that. Also my mother and my sister. I think it's just very normal in our family to be very disciplined, to not complain, but just to do.
Do you think that it has to do with the culture, the Dutch culture, or maybe the Jewish culture?
Jewish culture of learning, but also of combining, not complaining. It's also very Dutch. I don't know. Maybe it's Dutch Jewish to be like that. I have no idea.
So in fact, your success is, I could say, a communal effort. It's not only your personal, but it's also people who are around you and support you.
Yeah, definitely. My husband always supports me, and like he always thinks it's a pity that I'm not working in academia. But I like working with young children, so for me, I don't care.
I think that it can still change, of course, because you never know when an
Maybe
opportunity may arise.
I have no idea, but maybe I will be. I get bored. I get a bore out. That's also can happen. Maybe I get a bore out in 5 years, and I decide to do something else. I have no idea. But for now, for the time being, it's fine.
I think what is clear from our conversation today is that, in fact, one can pursue academic career also outside, well, maybe not academic career, but pursue academic research also outside the academia, but it requires then two things: enormous discipline or hard core financial support, which was not your case because you had to earn the money in order to feed your family together with your husband because the costs in the Netherlands are quite high.
Mm-hmm.
And I also
Yes.
think of other examples that we heard here in this podcast, other women that I spoke to who also were in a rather similar situation as independent scholars. And one of them at least mentioned that she kind of had to give up on institutional academic career because she had to take care of the family. In your case, and in her case, one thing is similar, that you still continue doing academic research no matter what. And I think both of you are quite successful in that.
Yeah, I think we need, I don't know the other woman, but you need you need something to think of. You need something to think about. And most of the jobs don't have that. Don't have that. You need to think, you need to create, you need to write, you need to do research. That's a very strong urge, so very strong desire. So even if you don't publish a lot, your mind needs something to think of. You need to create something. Yeah, that's a hobby. Some
If you,
people maybe water the plants. Another women do research. Maybe it's like that.
if you had the opportunity to change anything during your PhD study, would you do that in order to secure a job? Would have been there anything that you could do otherwise in order to secure that academic position?
I would never would make the same mistake of writing an interdisciplinary proposal. I would never do that again.
Why?
Why? Because if the committee reads your work, a historian don't think it's historical enough. Social scientists don't think there's enough theory in it. So everybody will have some criticism on your proposal. So I would never do that again. But from
Yeah, sorry.
I went to so many conferences. I think I published a lot. So I don't see any possibility. Maybe to do maybe a fellowship or something like that. Maybe.
Do you regret not getting a permanent job in the academia?
No, not really. Not anymore. Because I can do my own research now. I don't have to write on gender, decolonialism, or other fashion topics. So I can pursue my own interests. So for me, I don't think I missed out on anything. But I thought that in the beginning. I did thought that.
Thank you very much, Tsila, for our very interesting and thought-provoking and very direct, I would say very Dutch, in that sense, conversation. Um, so thank you. And
You're
I wish
welcome.
you all the best in your future academic and non-academic endeavors.
Thank you.